So I've got news for you. It's a 49ers update. George Kittle is back. If you don't know that he left, well, you probably haven't been following what happened this offseason, but he had to have core muscle surgery because he was fighting through about half of last season with a bad injury. He was in pain over the course of that stretch. Still performed admirably well. It was actually really impressive what we saw from George Kittle, but he lost about 30 pounds of muscle this offseason coming off the surgery because he wasn't able to lift. Well, he's gaining that weight back. He's gaining that strength back. And now I think it's safe to say that George Kittle has fully returned to strength. If you don't believe me, here's evidence. George Kittle, 555 pounds on the deadlift. One more time, play this, and we can go without the sound so you can actually hear me talk. But 555 pounds is no joke because it was just a little while ago that we saw Javon Hargrave, who is much heavier than George Kittle, lifting 500 pounds on the deadlift. I'm not saying this was a max for Javon Hargrave, but if Kittle is in the same ballpark as what Hargrave is doing, and he's above what Hargrave is doing in these videos right here, this might be actually a little bit more for Javon. But anyway, if George Kittle is just in the same ballpark, super impressive for a 240-pound tight end, as opposed to Javon Hargrave, who is a 300-plus pound defensive tackle. Anyway, the 30 pounds of muscle, George Kittle has packed it back onto his frame. This is at his barn in Nashville. You could tell by the jerseys up on the wall. But, Kittle, I tweeted this today. The last two seasons that we've seen from George Kittle have been the biggest workloads so far of his NFL career. Managed to play the last three seasons. Managed to play 1,009 snaps in 2021, 1,022 snaps in 2022, and then 1,084 snaps last season in 2023. He had not eclipsed 1,000 snaps over any of his first four seasons, including 2019 when the 49ers went to the Super Bowl and played the Kansas City Chiefs. So there's a lot of criticism about George Kittle in 2020 for not being durable when he missed the second half of the season. But he's been a 1,000-snap guy now in 3 straight years. And the reason why that's so significant is because those 3 years, the 49ers have had to play 20-game marathons. If you're going to navigate a 20-game marathon successfully, your best players better be ready and available to play for most of it. George Kittle plays an extremely physical position. He's often dealing with guys heavier than him because he's blocking a lot of defensive ends at his 240 or so pound tight end weight. So the ability to stay healthy and strong enough to combat through this many snaps for these seasons has been instrumental for George Kittle. On top of that, he got his yards per route run number up to about 2 this past year, 1.99. Tomorrow morning on The Athletic, you're going to have a piece on that. I have a piece on the wide receivers and the tight ends, the passing production, the receiving end of it, though, from Brock Purdy. That's co-written with Matt Barrows. It's going to be tomorrow, and you're going to get to see the efficiency delineations of all the 49ers targets. Kittle's yards per route run went up. He's now delivered 2 straight 1,000-yard seasons, and he led all tight ends last year in deep pass receptions, deep pass receiving yards, and deep pass touchdowns. So he's not just the possession tight end. He's the most explosive tight end in the game, and he's also, I think, the best blocking tight end in the game. He's a true superstar. There's so much hatred, so much misinformation coming off the Super Bowl. Oh, he only had 1 catch. Well, try playing with a torn adductor muscle. Try playing with the muscle that George Kittle had to repair with that core muscle surgery. It's not, this is the kind of stuff that, I don't think people on the outside fully realize. And then they see after the season, oh, he had surgery. Well, that was a surgery that George Kittle had to, not just succeed through the surgery, but he had to succeed through the rehab, picking up those 30 pounds that he lost. That is not easy stuff to do. And it wasn't easy to play through the injury in the first place. So I think there needs to be a little bit more appreciation for what the 49ers are getting out of their star tight end here. And even despite what he was playing through in the run through January, George Kittle had some massive plays to help punch the 49ers ticket to the Super Bowl. Talk about the long touchdown catch against the Green Bay Packers. You can talk about against the Lions, everybody had to contribute down the stretch, but the long touchdown catch against the Green Bay Packers really set the table. The 49ers put on an offensive clinic down the stretch of that NFC Championship game where Kittle was instrumental with his run pass threat. I mean, he is a threat to either run block or go out for a pass, and it could be a deep pass since he was the leading deep receiver out of all tight ends in the NFL last year. He really is a linchpin of that 49ers offense. You want to see a little bit more evidence of George Kittle being back? This was a tight end U here in Nashville a couple weeks ago. He is moving fine. He's throwing fine as well. Core muscle injury behind George Kittle now. That was a Vanderbilt tight end that he's talking to. Asked for a pointer after one of those catches. And Kittle was nice enough to stop by, give him a little bit of a route running advice, and then head back to the huddle at tight end U. So it's been a busy month for George Kittle. He's at Christian McCaffrey's wedding this past weekend. And now, as we have shown, he is back to deadlifting 555 pounds. Anyway, it's time for a 49ers Q&A now that that's out of the way. Leaving on a trip tomorrow. So obviously the content is going to keep on flowing, but I think right now is a good time to just talk, answer any of your questions. It is officially July, so it's officially the dead part of the season. I think many people are probably thankful that the Brandon Ayuk news cycle has slowed down a little bit because training camp is going to be starting in 3 weeks, a little bit over that. And it's always good to have a little bit of a slower stretch until that happens. As Being Butterfly says, sheer stupidity. There is a lot of lazy ignorance. Yes. And it's too bad because what we're seeing is, with the 49ers right now is a really, really talented football team, a very entertaining football team. And sometimes the hot takes can get in the way of appreciation for what's in front of you. And I think that's my job, is to go out there and set the record straight, make sure that we see things for what they really are. And that is a collection of all pros, really, really good talent on the field for the 49ers, entertaining people. That's what I appreciate it as, but I think that often does get lost in the fog. I did just tell you how durable he is. So Kittle was able to play through all of that. That's durability right there. Every single NFL player is going to suffer at least a few bruises over the course of the season. It's usually going to be more than that. These guys, this is a gladiatorial sport. This is not for the faint of heart. When you have the collisions happening at the speed with which they're happening at the NFL level, with the size of those players, it's just not physically possible to get through one of these campaigns unscathed. So then it becomes a battle of the will. It becomes a battle of preparation and ability to play through stuff. And I think that's what George Kittle should be commended for in 2023. This is a terrible take. Chatting with the Kansas City defensive end instead of blocking him to the whistle. He was blocking to the whistle. That's why he didn't see the football behind him. Kittle was blocking I think it was George Karlaftis to the whistle. That's when he said whatever he did that got picked up on the mic'd up for the NFL. And the fumble from Christian McCaffrey happened right behind him. If George Kittle is not blocking Karlaftis, then he might be turned around and he might be able to see the fumbles. Guys, sometimes stuff is about luck. You're not out there on that field. You don't know how fast it works out there on that field. You're watching on TV. So enjoy the show. Be a spectator, enjoy the show, but quit coming up with these asinine takes like George Kittle didn't turn around fast enough to hop on a fumble that he couldn't see because he was literally blocking at the time. Some people really need to put away the keyboard and just enjoy what is happening on the screen. I get it. The 49ers lost the Super Bowl, and that could be frustrating to some people, but a lot of people out themselves as having never played sports, especially at a high level, but having never played sports at all, probably, with takes like this. I think it's really simple. On a play where somebody fumbles, the culpability goes to the person who fumbles. And Christian McCaffrey was awesome, and he still is awesome for the 49ers. And I guarantee you that he wishes that he had that play back. It is in no way, shape, or form George Kittle's fault. There's nothing that George Kittle should have been doing differently on that play. Here's a rational take. Kittle playing through that for months is insane. If it's going to require core muscle surgery and to play through that, maybe play through other stuff, you got to tip your cap. At some level, you have to acknowledge that the gladiator nature of this sport is not for the faint of heart, and you have to appreciate that. And I think that, going and watching some of these workouts, correcting some of the nonsense out there about George Kittle blocking George Karlaftis through the whistle, not seeing a ball rolling around behind him, I think some of that's necessary because people get stuck down these rabbit holes that just are not tethered in reality. Will George Kittle get an extension next season? If he keeps on playing at this level, I think this is between what he's producing through the receiving game and his blocking. And obviously, the 49ers offense is predicated on balance, and the ability to threaten to do both at any given time is so important for what the 49ers are doing. So, if George Kittle stays at this level, I don't see how you don't extend him if you're San Francisco. Look at the lifespan of Travis Kelce in NFL. He's older than George Kittle, and he keeps on signing big deals, and he keeps on delivering just like Kittle. So I get it. Kittle's more physical than Kelce. That part of the game can lead to more injuries, more of those nicks and bruises. But every situation should be viewed individually. And the George Kittle situation, with what he's doing right now over his past 3 years, 1,000+ snaps, as valuable as he is, the 49ers would definitely, I think, look to extending him, assuming that he stays healthy and he stays productive. Yes, we're going to try to get something together for Nashville. That's coming up in about 5 weeks, maybe 5.5 weeks. So I will start tending to that in a little bit. Can I show how extending George Kittle's contract can help the 49ers cap situation? Sure. Why don't we go to George Kittle's contract on Over the Cap and we could talk about that. So this is it. It's up on the screen. 2025, which is Kittle's final year under contract. He's got a cap number of 22 million with a base salary of 14.4 million. He's already been restructured, I think, a couple times, which has pushed a lot of the signing bonus money against the cap into the future. You can reduce George Kittle's cap hit by chopping that base salary down to the league minimum in 2025, that 14.4 million, to whatever it would be, about 1.2, 1.3 million, and prorating the rest as a signing bonus. You'd essentially be surfing the wave of a rising salary cap, and you do so by either restructuring George Kittle or tacking an extension on that would also allow you to put more void years onto his contract and open space up further into the future. So whereas Kittle's cap hit this season is 12.2 million, it rises to 22 million in 2025. The 49ers can easily slash that to around 10 to 12 million in 2025 with an extension. It's all about taking advantage of the fact that the salary cap continues to rise. And if the 49ers project that it will continue to rise, it's tied to NFL revenue, well, then they can continue rolling the dice like this, and it's not that much of a risk against the salary cap. Anthony wonders how many players of the 49ers were playing with injuries in the Super Bowl. I think a lot, and a lot of Chiefs players were playing with injuries too. That's just the nature of the game. That is the end of a 20-game marathon. So that's why you have to salute some of these guys, because they are putting their bodies out there on the line. They're playing through a lot of pain, and it's a lot of stuff that fans don't know about over the course of the season. And that's why it makes it so tough to lose a Super Bowl, because you've invested so much into it. You've gritted your teeth and you've made it to the finish line, but sometimes you don't make it to the finish line victorious. All right, I'm ready to answer questions. This is just a casual Q&A, so we're going to go. Not much to specifically address today from a news perspective, but we did have that George Kittle deadlift experiment, 555 pounds. Who do I see at free safety? Well, the safeties are essentially interchangeable for the 49ers. So Talanoa Hufanga needs to get healthy. First things first. Jair Brown, I think, is going to be a starter at the beginning of the season if they don't sign somebody. We'll see if they've been interested in signing somebody at safety, it seems, throughout this offseason. I don't know if that interest, though, has sustained itself after they drafted Malik Mustafa and after they learned about Talanoa Hufanga's recovery speed. I think that he's going to be ready, should be ready by week one. That's his goal. I think earlier in the offseason when they hosted Rayshawn Jenkins, when they hosted Julian Blackmon, who re-signed with the Colts, they might have been a little bit more uncertain about Talanoa Hufanga's recovery timetable. That being said, it still wouldn't surprise me if they brought in a veteran, and it could be a veteran that's not quite at the A-list level. I know Justin Simmons is still out there. Maybe even Tashawn Gibson Sr. if he's still ready to play in his age 34 season. But Jair Brown, I see starting at one of the safety positions. Talanoa Hufanga on the other, out of the players who are on this roster right now and obviously established enough to start. But Hufanga's got to come back from that injury, and we'll see how Malik Mustafa, the rookie out of Wake Forest, does in training camp. Then you'll see if they put anybody else in. But I don't think that Mustafa is going to be starting from day one. I also think that Mustafa might be a little bit more of a Swiss Army knife than a standard, free or strong safety. That being said, again, I got to emphasize what I said at the start of the answer. Free and strong safety, you shouldn't be looking at this as individual positions. I think that the strong safety technically has got to play center field, and the free safety has to be closer to the box at any given time. How do I think Navarro Bowman will be as a coach? I got to know him a little bit in 2017, my first year covering the 49ers. Now he's going to be a linebackers coach under Jim Harbaugh with the Chargers. I mean, the wealth of knowledge that is in that guy's brain is second to none. He was an all-pro caliber player. Obviously, the size-speed combination was awesome, but his play recognition was really good too. Just depends on how well he's going to communicate it. And I think that he's going to have a chance to develop into that role on an NFL coaching staff. We'll have to talk to Jake Moody when this season starts. He's taken some time away. I really think that, Jake Moody was impressive down the stretch with the 250-plus yarders in the Super Bowl. He obviously got that one blocked, the extra point in the Super Bowl, and that's probably left a sour taste in his mouth. But all things considered, over 80% make rate over his rookie season. Some of the bombs that Kyle Shanahan trusted Jake Moody with, I know that he was a little bit closer to that right upright, and I'm sure that's something that he's studying this offseason, but it's definitely not anything that you should expect an answer for on July 1st. They have been looking for tight ends year in and year out, but it's hard to find somebody that hits as well as George Kittle. I mean, Kittle, that was the ultimate hit, right? 5th round pick in the 2017 draft. But they drafted Braden Willis. They drafted Cam Latu. They were looking to add tight ends this year through restricted free agency, Brock Wright, but the Lions matched their offer. So it's not for a lack of trying. The 49ers are trying to bolster that tight end position to augment what they have with George Kittle, but it's obviously something that the hit rate is not an automatic. And I think the people that follow this, they got used to, watching George Kittle dominate from a 5th round position in 2017. And they think that anybody that the 49ers plug in there will be at least good. It's not easy to be good in the NFL. So the 49ers are going to continue cycling guys through. I covered tight end U last week, talked to Mason Pline, the undrafted rookie. They've got Logan Thomas on the team. I think Eric Saubert's going to be a player to watch. He's a veteran who was actually drafted in the 5th round of 2017. It's a lot of good options for San Francisco as far as potential goes, and they're going to keep on cycling those guys through until somebody sticks. All right, 20 minutes. That's all I was hoping to do. I want to take another look at George Kittle, 555 pounds. George Kittle is back. Good stuff for the 49ers. Lost 30 pounds after surgery this offseason, but he's looking big, strong, and ready to go here in July of 2024. Thanks for joining. We'll talk to you soon.